will be victorious against the scientific dictatorship owned and run by the private offshore banks that have created a worldwide Ponzi scheme of fraud. They have bought off our countrymen. They have bought off tens of millions of people to serve their system. But if we are able to expose the larger blueprint of global enslavement, this new world order can be brought down and will be brought down. Thank you for joining us. We are live. It is April 27th, 2010 on this Tuesday edition, and we're going to be here live for the next 4 hours. William Geem is coming on. He's the head of AliPac. He came out, of course, last Friday in a speech, and he talked about the fact that reportedly Senator Lindsey Graham is a closeted homosexual, and that he's being blackmailed, or he's concerned that he's being blackmailed to support carbon taxes, open borders, amnesty, banker bailout takeovers, and much more. I mean, why would Graham be engaging in political suicide in his state when everything he's doing is unconstitutional and unpopular if he's not being blackmailed? I don't know if this is true or not. I'm going to challenge Mr. Geem on it. But the issue is not about Mr. Graham's sexuality or what he does in his private time, the unmarried senator. The issue is that we know countless pedophile scandals, sex scandals, you name it, have been used in the Congress, in the House and Senate, to blackmail and to control politicians. And you really don't get into these upper reaches of power unless you are compromised. So that's coming up in 2 hours today on this live Tuesday edition. We are also going to get into anti-gun activity going on. 2 Chicago state reps say bring in the National Guard. This is out of the Chicago Tribune. And expanding on that, Illinois to declare Disarm Lawful Citizens Week with a whole bunch of new bills they've introduced. Remember Governor Blagojevich, now disgraced over a year ago, he came out, we played part of the press conference here, and called for troops to go door to door in the state of Illinois, disarming people. And this is all being done under federal funding and federal auspices, so we'll be talking about that some today. Also, Ron Paul last Friday took to the House floor. We'll be playing part of that speech coming up, and said Iran's sanctions are an act of war under international law and under federal law. And Ron Paul goes over that, the congressman from Texas. But I thought I'd also go to the Christian Science Monitor and many other mainstream news reports. This isn't just Ron Paul saying this. By the rules of war, this is an illegal act of war. Sanctions on Iran's gasoline imports, that's war talk. So that's the Christian Science Monitor, not just Ron Paul. Here's Asia Times. U.S. warns to strike on Iran, nuclear strike on Iran. That's what they're saying. They're saying, we have a new policy. We're not going to have preemptive nuclear strike. That itself is a new policy. We never had a first strike policy until Bush changed it 4 years ago. With these so-called usable nukes, the supposed smaller nukes, which are even worse because they don't air flash at 1,000 feet. They go into bunkers, they go into the ground, and then combine with different metals and isotopes, creating some of the most deadly radioactive clouds known to man. But the point is they're getting ready and openly discussing, the Pentagon has discussed using nukes preemptively. And so Obama's saying with doublespeak, we have a new policy. We don't preemptively nuke countries unless you're Iran. And so they're getting ready for that crime. And the American people, while the banks are robbing them blind, some will go to the liquor store and order pizza and go sit in front of the TV feeling manly as mushroom clouds detonate all across Persia. Of course, the elite think of you as scum, just as they think of the Iranians as scum. We are live, ladies and gentlemen, Tuesday, the 27th day of April, 2010. We've had MSNBC down here. We've had CNN. And we had PBS last week. Today and tomorrow, we have Nightline and ABC World News tonight here. I tell you, I'm just waiting with bated breath to see how they spin this or how they present the information we cover here on the syndicated radio broadcast. But we want to welcome the nice folks, certainly nice personnel from Nightline and ABC News here with us today. I'm told it's for both reports. And we're going to be opening the phones up coming up later in this hour. They're not open yet, but when we do open the phones, it's 1-800-259-9231, 1-800-259-9231, and we'll get you up and on the air. Okay, we're going to talk about what's happened in Arizona and how that's being spun and how the mainstream media and the Obama administration are trying to invoke the race card yet again. I want to talk about the true nature of what's really happening. The country is trying to survive. The country is starting to wake up that NAFTA and GATT and open borders have destroyed our standard of living, and that's the global stated plan, to lower the standard of living of the West, not to raise the standard of living of the third and developing world. Mexico has been in full collapse in the last 5 years. Now it's in open collapse. And the federal government's preparing as millions more refugees try to pour across to bring them in and to put them on welfare and then give them voting rights to be used as a political weapon to pass more taxes and disarm the American people. Now, if we didn't have all this welfare that was bankrupting the nation, if we weren't putting so many of these illegals on welfare, if they were brought to this country and educated about the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and they would go to the ballot box and vote for the Second Amendment, national sovereignty, I probably wouldn't be so concerned. But instead, the big government system controlled by the offshore central banks is forging the giant illegal immigrant population into a political army to help bring this nation into the New World Order. And that's the stated plan. We're going to go over some of that today. Also, we have the big banks getting in more and more trouble. And we have Goldman Sachs and others testifying before Congress today saying that they basically didn't do anything wrong. We're going to be going over that. And then I'm going to continue with the overall agenda for the planetary government, and that is population reduction, forced population control. Here's one out of Sky Television News out of England. China to sterilize 10,000 people forcibly in one town to curb births. And that dovetails with CNN on Earth Day last week. How green is your love life? And they recommend having a one-child policy in the United States to implement that. So just hardcore, draconian police state being proposed here in the United States. Very authoritarian, very, very oppressive. And we're going to be talking about some of that information today. But I wanted to go ahead now, before I get into the banking, before we get into what's happening in Arizona, and before our guest joins us coming up in about an hour and 45 minutes, dealing with Lindsey Graham, the senator. Is he being blackmailed? Before we do that, let's go ahead and get into the war front here. The federal government and the willing accomplice mainstream dinosaur media knowingly went along with the lie that Saddam Hussein had gotten yellow cake uranium from Niger, Africa, and that they could launch ICBMs that could hit England within 45 minutes carrying chemical and biological weapons. And of course, it came out on the White House memo and the Downing Street memo. And there were federal investigations and British investigations over who released these. They don't deny these are real documents. That the government premeditatedly, in consultation with the British government, lied to the public and said we must fix the intelligence around WMDs. We know they're not there, but we're going to war. That is the set policy. And we're seeing a repeat of this now with Iran. Iran has a lot of oil, but they don't have the refining capacity to supply even half their needs. They import most of their refined gasoline. They mainly sell unrefined crude oil. And they've said, we want peaceful nuclear reactors built by the Russians with some help of the French. And these have no weapons capabilities. The uranium isn't anywhere near the enrichment they need. And they've signed on to the treaties, and they follow the treaties. and they've said that we want to be able to be energy self-sufficient, like France or Japan, who are some of the more energy self-sufficient groups out there because they're mainly nuclear powered.